and welcome back to the workshop. Today I have a fixer-upper for you. It's a hot air tool that was defunct and headed for the skip. It has spent its life in a factory shop floor environment being used and abused. It was covered in grease and solder splashes and it was completely dead. But given the brand, it's an Oki, also known as Metcal. They're known for making fairly rugged devices, so I thought, well, it might be worth trying to see if I can fix it. So the first thing I did was look at the fuse, and sure enough, that had blown. So rather optimistically, I changed it, and I won, and I got some power onto the thing. However, no hot air, and judging by the rattling noises the handpiece was making, then the element was probably in bits. So I had two jobs then to do: replace the element and a major clean-up job.
So then I set to with various cleaning cloths and isopropyl to try and get it into a better state. I'm going to show you this mostly in time lapse, as nobody needs to see me picking off solder in real time. Having cleaned up the underside and the feet, I took the handpiece bracket off and gave that a bit of a scrub, and then worked on the base unit casing. This is made of metal and painted with a slightly rough finish of paint, and I tried to use a wire brush, but it really wasn't taking much of the solder off. In the end I had to resort to picking each piece of solder off one by one using the edge of a screwdriver, which worked, but it was a slow process. The front panel had additional problems. It looked as though someone had idly scribbled on it with a marker pen, the worst of it covering this fan symbol and also the two knobs. I cleaned up the entire case with isopropyl, including a stubborn sticky label on the top, and then took another look at the front panel. One of the knobs was standing too high, but I needed to remove them in order to clean around them anyway, and once removed I found a big blob of solder caught under the left knob. This was quickly removed with a bit of leverage, leaving plenty of room to sit the knob back in its correct position. The black on the front of the knobs took a little while to remove, but was eventually cleaned off with a thumbnail and a rag soaked in isopropyl. Only after I was done did I realise that in fact they were supplied like this new, so my bright red and blue knobs are now unique. I found the handpiece mount can be fitted to the right or the left. Screws are provided for both positions and I decided to swap it over to the right, it just seemed more convenient for me. So with the base unit as clean as it could be, that just left the handpiece to refurbish. Again, a good scrub with alcohol cleaned up most of it, although the metal end remained tarnished. I guess that's just from the heat. And finally I had to replace the element to get the tool working again. The handpiece is held together with 3 screws. Opening it is just a case of pulling off the hose and removing those 3 screws. The element is housed inside the metal tube and the cables have a variety of connectors. First there is a large white plug which can be disconnected easily by just pushing on the locking clip. That leaves a yellow and a red wire. Each has a piece of heat shrink sleeving around it, but underneath that is a push fit connector. So the way to disconnect them is to score around the connectors with a knife and they just pull apart. Finally, there's an earth connection which we can leave connected as it doesn't go to the element. Now I can slide the old element out and it's falling to pieces as I move it. It's important to make sure there's no debris left in the tube as we don't want any short circuits later. I tried to clean up the tube as much as I could before moving on. The element is an original Metcal. It cost me about £55 at the time I did the repair. Comparing the two, they are identical, so fitting should just be a straight swap. All I had to add was a couple of pieces of heat shrink for the red and yellow wires. You do have to take care not to snag the coils on the side of the tube as you slide the element in, otherwise it's just a case of reconnecting the wires. I had to use a flat blade soldering iron to heat up the heat shrink, as ironically I don't have a heat gun to do that. Hopefully this will be the last time I use a soldering iron for this job. Having made all the connections, I then spent a fair bit of time adjusting the wires and connectors so that they would lie perfectly flat in the case. Lid on, screws in, and the rubber hose pushed back into place, and hopefully the job is done. Just a quick test to make sure we have heat, and yes, everything looks good. I could see the element glowing, but it doesn't come through on camera.
So in the end, that was worth all the effort spent. I now have a perfectly good tool, a really useful one, with one little catch. I only have one original nozzle. They're not much good without them, and this one's really narrow. Now the originals, this brand, cost about £30 upwards per piece. And then I found there's a solution to that. If you look on eBay, you can buy a pack, all of those, for about a £5. And these are designed to fit the cheaper ones. It just so happens the diameter is the same as the Metcal. So these two are the equivalent part. Fits just fine. They are slightly different, but they work perfectly well. And as a hobbyist, it really isn't worth spending the big money. So if you're doing this, buy those ones and save yourself some money. That's it for this time. I'll see you next time with something different in the workshop.